Hey, 40K Fanatics, it's Lane with Tim's Nation. I'm here with DJ. We just got back from the Fabricator's Forge, Bedlam in the Burg GT in Pittsburgh, PA this past weekend. Had a great time. I can't wait to tell you about the experiences I had. DJ, you ready to share a little bit about your weekend?
No.
Okay. So some things we're going to do today. First off, we're going to talk through our individual battles, not spend a whole lot of time on each one, but just give you a little bit of idea on each one. Then we're going to pick out a favorite army that we played against, something unique, something interesting. And we're also going to talk about our favorite game that we played overall. Now, DJ, what was your favorite game?
No.
Nope. Okay. So my favorite army that I played against was a Black Templars army. It was really interesting. I wasn't expecting it. And then the favorite game I had was against a Imperial Guard player.
Guard.
Yeah, I've been dealing with this the last 48 hours, guys. He's been like this for a while. We'll see how he gets
Guard.
started. I'm going to give you one guess as to what army he was not prepared to play against this weekend.
Guard.
We'll see in a minute. We'll talk about everything.
Guard. Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here at Tim's Nation, and today we are joined by Lane, who also joined me going to Pittsburgh for the Bedlam at the Burg GT hosted by Fabricator's Forge. This GT was a 2-day long event, 5 games, and yeah, my trip there was much different than Lane's trip there. I mean, well, we drove in the same car.
Yeah, I think I did all the work. I did all the driving, and I got the food and everything.
Wow, yeah, you did. Way to put that out there, man. Thanks. Way to be that
DJ,
guy.
you guys, it's a rough time. I drove you to and from Pittsburgh.
I paid for
dinner. I was your chauffeur.
I paid for dinner.
Well, okay, yeah. You bought me a sheets muffin.
I paid for dinner. You're the one who didn't specify that you were an expensive date, my friend.
Right.
But anyways, this is some of the banter that goes on, especially when you do spend 2 days with somebody, and
and nights. It was.
And don't get and nights. Oh gosh, we're not going to talk. We're not going to talk about the.
This is not Temptation After Dark.
Yeah, no, the immense. It was very difficult to sleep. And oh my god, you guys had the.
I snore a little bit, guys. It's the way it is.
How cold?
Surprise DJ. With
how
that one.
Cold do you got to make a room? How cold? Seriously, I was in like sweatpants and
I'm
a
like
blanket.
a polar bear. I need an Arctic environment. Sorry.
I blame my wife for it though, because she's subtropical, and man, she makes I think she ruined me, because I used to love that. I used to love sleeping in the cold. But I think we've sidetracked enough for this video. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Turn on the bell for notifications to get notified on more videos, such as this one where we recap some of our tournament experiences. Like, share, subscribe, and check out all the other battle reports and content that we've been putting out for quite a little while now. I think I just hit hitting 100 videos as I'm making this video. I'm thinking about that because I think we're very close to it. But some of those in the beginning, I got to look back and go, well, did this really count? Because I was kind of testing things and you're figuring stuff out. Like our first video with orcs. Yeah. Teaser there. Orcs is coming. I'm going to be bringing the WA here soon. Oh yeah. But with that being said, the tournament itself, I had a great time. I have a lot of good friends that go down there, and I get to see them. Sometimes this is the only time we get to hang out, especially, people, your lives go to different states, and some travel these miles and miles and distances for these weekends to hang out with these people who are doing adult things and have adult life. So it's always a good time for that. The venue was gorgeous. They had bartenders there who were super nice. Everything about the event was great. About the event was great. They have a different scoring system that we're going to cover in another video. And I got a bunch of questions I'm going to hit Lane with that are going to be some of the questions out there. We'll tease that at the end of this because we want you guys also to ask some questions to us so we can discuss this with you and bring that in that video. And we're going to talk about our experiences with this recent GT that we just were at right now. And Lane, you took your Leagues of Votann double hecaton list and had a much much better time than I did. And when I say I have a bad time, I don't mean I had a bad time. I don't mean like I'm angry and petty and kicking rocks and all that. It's not that. It's I had a bad time because when you go and look at the different armies I practiced against, one army I didn't practice, and I knew they had a new book, and I knew they had some better stuff, and I knew it was going to beat me up, but I only was thinking about the Karzakin. What are they called?
Yeah,
The Kazakin? Some, yes. These Imperial Guardsmen that can deal mortal wounds for damage, I knew they were going to hurt me, but I didn't do enough research, and I didn't know about one thing. That one thing is the banner. It's that little banner. How much a flag destroys my army. Catan's dying to a flag. We're going to talk about what Guard can do. And they're scoring and everything. It was nasty, and I'm still... I want to find someone who plays an Imperial Guard army and bring them over and just play against that army for hours and build an army with one of my armies that does one thing, and that's beat Guard, and go to a tournament and just beat Guard. It is brutal.
I believe you can perfect such an army, and you will do so just in time for everything to change for 10th edition.
Exactly.
You'll crack it. You'll figure it out in 2 months, and then it'll be lost, and we'll have to start all over again.
Even with the nerfs, it's still brutal. It's still going to be a brutal place, and we'll talk about some of that too, as well as where Guard's going to end up. But I've ranted, I've vented. We will discuss that in a minute because we both have some experience with that on the Guard side of things. But Lane, you took your Leagues of Votann. Again, double Hekaton, triple Pioneers, Berserks, et cetera, something we've seen on the channel a lot.
Yeah, exact same list I've been running.
One question I got to ask, how many Hekatons were destroyed?
Oh, they got popped a few times. Totally blanking. Not the Ironheads. The Black Templars had enough shooting in their list to destroy one. And against Space Wolves, those Wolfen, when they've got Thunderhammers, they're strength 5. So Thunderhammers make them 10, and they have a strat +1 to wound. So when they get 16 attacks and they're wounding my Hekaton on 2s, it causes
Plus,
problems.
when they get to the Assault Doctor and their hammers are exploding double 6s for the Space Wolves.
Yeah, the extra hits and everything too. So they got popped a few times.
Space Wolves are one that I experienced as well in the past with Dayton. It's a very unique time frame for Wolves to be in, where you look at it and go, that's a shooting army. And then you should have the chance to push them back in combat, but no. Then they're a combat army. So that it's really just they have both sides of the coin in that matchup, and that's rough when you go into that Space Wolves matchup for that reason. Typically with their MSU builds, you can get around. There's still 5-man squads of Marines. They're fast in the sense that they have jump packs. They're still kind of inhibited to the 9-inch charge. They're running primarily melta weapons. There's stuff that you can do to get around that, but there's also a lot of things in the game right now, a higher majority, that can't get around that easily. That's really tough, and that's a lot of versatility in weapons. Good for the Wolves. They were an early edition codex. They haven't seen much love most of this edition. Yeah. So I'm glad to see that the edition can close out for those dedicated die-hard Wolf players. They get an opportunity to beat people up for a bit. You know, I'm seeing Wolfen on the table again. That's great.
I mean, it's the same thing with Guard too. I know you're salty about it, but they had a long go before they had a codex, probably longer than any other army in recent history. And so,
so tell me about that Black Templar list, man.
You want to talk about Guard all day?
No. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm still damaged.
So,
I'm still hurt.
Let's see. What was it? My second game, I think. Let me double check.
I looked
my second
over.
game. It was into Matt Tarantine. He had a Black Templar list, and I thought I can probably play against this list. I can probably shoot them before they can get into combat with me. But then I looked at the list. He had no combat infantry. They usually have Crusade squads, Terminator squads, something like that. They're usually based around combat. But this army was mostly vehicles. So it had 3 characters, and they were combat characters. You had Helbrecht, you had Grimaldus the Chaplain, and then the Judiciar. He fights pretty well as well. And then Had 2 squads of infiltrators because everyone needs to do the deep strike.
Of course. I mean, it's too good not to.
And the forward deploy, yeah. And then he had a 10-man
secured.
Right, and he had 10-man Desolator Marine squad, which everybody this plays Marine.
Was it one? Now. It was just 1 10-man or 2 5-mans.
1 10-man, one big one.
I think big one. So the rest of them just had bolt. Because they only get. Oh no, they all get 5. I'm sorry. Yeah, they all get it. So it'd be 10,
all 10
missiles.
Actually, I think it was 8. It wasn't quite 10. Probably didn't have the points for
frag or crack.
Crack, yeah, definitely crack. So that's
what I've seen mostly on these. If anyone's interested, the majority of Desolator Marines, which we're seeing them a lot, is crack. So if you were concerned about which side was it going to be for like Tyranid Swarm Army players, it's more right now towards the heavy crack missiles, the super crack.
Because basic Space Marines don't get a lot of access to D3+3 damage.
A lot of people.
The las cannons are still D6. The Meltas are D6 or D6+2 in Melta range, that kind of thing. But they're, like AdMech have las cannons, they're D3+3. Mm-hmm. I think even Chaos Marines now have D3+3 las cannons. So the interesting thing about this list is he had that D3+3 damage from the crack missiles. He had 3 Gladiators, Lancers. And those each have 2 las cannons that are D3+3 damage, because they're not just las cannons. They have a different name for them. I forget. But their turrets hit on 2s. So 3 of those things that were each putting out 2 las cannon shots. And then another Gladiator with the the Gatling cannons on it. So just put out, I think, 36 shots or something.
Was ridiculous. That the bigger of the 2 tanks, or still the smaller size?
Still the small Gladiator, but it had 2... so put out 24 shots from the Gatling cannons. Then it had 2 side sponsons that also were, each one was 8 shots, but rapid fire. So the thing could put out an enormous, like 40 shots when we got within 15 inches.
I'm not going to lie. I was standing next to you for that game. Mm-hmm. And I looked over and I saw those tanks and I'm like, oh, wow, that's just... And he had, there's a lot of yellow on his Black Templar tanks.
Yeah, I didn't really compliment him on his paint job because it was awfully Imperial Fisty for a Black Templar list.
Listen.
It's right there in the name, Black, and there was no
Black. Yeah, listen, I can understand. I can get it. Like, he brought the best build with it. It would still look very nice. And for me, that's not what bothered me when I looked at it. I saw ducks moving through a shooting gallery, and that's what I saw. I saw your Votan. And I see these things, and I'm like, they're like little yellow, like just these Gladiator tanks are just yellow floating ducks just moving through the pond. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be adorable. And I keep glancing back over to wait and see these ducks get popped. And I'm playing my game, and I look back over, and I'm like, where'd the Hecaton go?
No, those ducks.
Why are there still ducks?
Yeah. Yeah.
You got rolled by ducks.
Yeah. So he had the 4 different Gladiator tanks. And then he had 3 dreadnoughts. He had 2 regular Redemptors with the plasmas, and then 1 of the new Brutalis dreadnoughts. So as you can see where I'm going through this, because they're Black Templars, they can take Meltas on those Gladiator tanks, which no other Space Marines can do. And because they're free right now, that's 8 free Melta shots that just got on there. So he had a ton of anti-tank. So one of the few shooting armies that can actually pick up a Hecaton reliably in a turn. And then because he's Black Templars, he gave everything a 5-up invuln. I forget, I don't remember exactly what rules proc these, but there was, I think the chaplain could give out a 5-up or a 6-up feel no pain for everything core within 6 inches of him, and the dreadnoughts are core. And then he could also pop something once per game that gave everything a 4-up invuln instead of a 5-up. So there was one turn where those dreadnoughts had feel no pains and 4-up invulns, and they already reduced damage by 1. So it was just more than I could chew through. The secondaries for Votan are not great. They do well if I can table an army, and this was an army I ran into where just my damage profile was not working into it very well.
Do you remember what you took for secondaries? Did you take Lake Claim?
Yeah, Lake Claim. So that was not a good one. In this game, I don't remember, but I probably got like a 5 on that because I think he kept me off a couple of them. And then Bring It Down, of course, it gave up 14 points for Bring It Down. By the end of the game, I don't remember what the score was that one. But anyways, he beat me by a solid, 20 to 30 points. So it was a solid loss, but it was a really well built list. I complimented him on it. The good news is that he's good at the game. The guy's name is Matt Tarantine. He took 3rd for the event, so a 3rd out of an 80-player event. Did pretty well, and I agree with it. He did pretty well against me.
I got to tell you something, and this is just been going through my head since we first started talking about the list on the table and what I witnessed over there and everything. And this is more
So
of
glad
a
you could
question.
witness it.
This is more of a question out there for everyone else right there now is if someone can get me an STL of a duck-shaped gladiator tank and I can find a way to print these things, I will play a Space Marine army with a bunch of giant yellow rubber ducks that are having gladiator guns on them and everything like that. Rubber ducky.
We need to do a membership drive, and we get so many members. We go to Duck Army.
Oh man, Duck Army. Think about that. Think about the display board. Giant
one of his redemptors was very bright yellow. And he just kept referring it to as the banana dreadnought. I'm like, okay, I'm fine. I'm getting roasted by a banana.
Ducks roasted by banana. That's up. But no, I'm gonna roll people with ducks. I want to roll with ducks. Rolling with the ducks, baby. But needless to say, though, it was nice to see that many tanks on the table pre-10th, since there might be a heavy hit of 10th edition tanks. Not what we're here for, but
yeah. Well, the gladiators are super cheap. The ones with the las cans are 125 points. They're T8 with 12 wounds, and they get the free meltas on top of that stuff. So they put out, and then they've got the las cans, but they also have a bunch of other extra shots that just pick up a bike or two here or there. So they're really, really cost efficient. So we had a lot on the table and a lot that could bust tanks, but also a lot of anti-infantry fire, which chewed through my bikes pretty quickly. So, but no, it was a really well built list. He did really well on all of the secondaries. So congrats to Matt.
So before we jump over to the main event, any other games or armies in your other matchups that really caught your eye, or things that you were like, wow, that was kind of cool, or any pieces or parts, any other matchups?
Well, I can talk about my Imperial Guard game.
We'll get to
my favorite game.
We'll get to that.
I'm not there yet.
I'm not there. Shh, I'm not there yet.
All right.
I'm not there.
More time to heal for DJ.
Yes. I like you. I just don't like you yet.
Right. No, I don't think any of the other lists I played against were
they kind of
exceptional. Yeah, I played against the Iron Hand list that wasn't very surprising. The guy's a long-time 40K player, but hadn't got much play in the last few months. So he just came to the GT because it's local. Real good guy named Alex. We had a great time. But into a lot of armies, my Votan do consistently kill things. So by turn 2, we both had an idea what was going on, that I was going to kill him a lot faster than he can kill me. In terms of meta matchups, I feel like a lot of times I can outshoot Iron Hands. And that's what was happening in this case, and happened in one of my practice games. I had a game into Space Wolves. Interesting thing happened in this game was I forgot to bring on a squad of my bikes from reserve. Turn 3, I started my movement phase. I'm like, I'm going to put those pioneers right there, bring them in from reserve. And by the time we got to the movement step, I passed right by that, started shooting, and I was like, oh, I didn't bring those in. But we were at a state in the game where I didn't even feel like asking for the take back, like even put him back in my deployment zone somewhere. He just based on the map, he would move things out, and I had the speed of the bikes to get around and shoot stuff off the table. So I was shooting off the Wolfen and the jump pack Marines before they could get to me. He brought in some heavy weapon squads from reserves, but he made the mistake of shooting at the Hecatons. Just didn't have the quantity of stuff to make a real impact. So he shot heavy weapons.
Even with the Meltas?
He did it with a Melta squad and then did it with a Lascan squad. Neither made much of it. I mean, they'd take 4 or 8 wounds off. I heal flat 4 each turn. So it just, he did get one of the Hecatons, like I said, with Wolfen because they got in there. But he had all infantry.
So did you guys just resolve the Pioneers as dead?
Pioneers? No.
The ones that
Yeah, it's not like either of us was going to win the tournament, so I didn't feel like, a lot of times if an opponent asked me,
game 5.
It was game 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had already lost 2 during the tournament. I wasn't too worried about it. And like I said, it was turn 3, and I was killing him really fast. So just to keep it interesting, I was like, I guess they're dead, And if my opponent had asked me if he could put, he forgot if he could throw them in his backfield out of, so they could come on, I would be okay with that. But I didn't feel like asking it. And again,
you were in a good controlling position.
Yeah. There was no need to ask for the take back because I still tabled him. No offense to him because his army hit really hard. I just had the mobility to get around terrain and get eyes on things and shoot it before it came out. He probably should have charged, moved everything out. He kept 3 squads of Wolfen in a building and then moved 1 out. And then I flew bikes around and shot it away. And then he moved another one out, and I moved Hecatons in and shoot them. He dropped in some guys, a 7-man Devastator squad. I picked that up with a hecaton in one round of shooting. I'm just really efficient into Space Marine bodies. So I have a whole lot of AP2 2 damage shots that are strength 6, strength 7. So they just wound easily, wound with auto wounds, AP2, sometimes AP3. Just shoot through Marines real quick. And he had all infantry, 1 character, 0 vehicles. So it was no prisoners all the way, just picking guys up. Like I said, different matchup into different armies. I'm sure he'd wreck them because those Wolfen hit really hard. And he had lots of units out there to do things with. Space Wolves are really cheap right now, so they have just a lot of units. I just kept killing and killing and killing.
Their upgrades are cheap.
Well, that means they can take lots of these 5-man squads that cost 100 or 120 points and are just loaded out. But yeah, I just kept killing and killing stuff. It was still, still a fun game. So I had a good time. Very well painted army. So his name is Scott. And it was a good time. It's just, we could tell from pretty early on that I was just going to outkill him.
So one thing I want to touch on real quick, how'd you feel about the terrain and the table setup? The one thing that I've noted mostly was the tables usually, like as we have the table set up long ways, this is how the tables usually are done. The event had them turned long ways.
Yeah.
Kind of like
so by long ways, I'm standing here, and my opponent's standing over there, and these are more tables and more tables, so you couldn't walk around to this side. And then he chose only missions that were not deployed on this side.
Right.
So it's either stuff that from the corners or hammer and anvil from the sides. So it was interesting. I thought it was fine with it. Occasionally, you had to walk all the way around 6 tables to get to the other side if you wanted to deep strike something.
Now I love that because there was usually one guy. Because that was some. I'm going to say this: there are some people who are very tall, or there's some people who play shooting armies, and those people who play shooting armies and don't need to go across the field of the table can stay back. Those people who are very tall are the guys. Well, I'm going to reach over. In that, I am someone who is on the tall, skinny side, and I can usually do the breach. But there's one usually.
If I do that, I'm going to knock something off the table with my belly. If I get
in the restaurant, I don't mind doing the run. And usually every round, there's one other person who's going to do the runs around the table too. And after I see it the first time, and we start going around, there was that one guy, Jeff. I got him, me and him 8 or 9 times. He was running around the circle, and I'd seen Jeff. And we went by each other once and we're like, oh, excuse me. Then we came back around the other time. I was like, oh, sorry, excuse me. And he's like, nice seeing you again. Then we came back the next time. We've seen each other. We locked eyes and went high five. He stopped, smiled, and went, yes. For the rest of that round, every time we passed by, we're like, high five. Just as we pass. So I enjoy the experience of the people
I mean, a few more times and you guys would have gotten to full-on hugs. Like, oh, good to see you again, man.
Or knuckle bumps and realize that's a bad idea to come around a corner and punch someone else's fist.
Yeah. And then my last game was into Custodes. I played into Custodes really well. For whatever reason, my damage output, the AP, ignoring cover, strength stuff, I just chew through Custodes really quickly. So anyways, the guy's name was Jeremy. Real good guy, nice painted army. I shook his hand and said, hey, have you ever played Votan before? He's like, yeah, my wife plays Votan. I'm like, all right. My dude's living the dream. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it to the GT. Just a whole lot of standing over 2 days and a whole lot of reaching. For people of all ages, they can have some back issues that might make that difficult. But very cool to see a guy he and his wife play 40K together. So we had a good time. Great gentleman. But again, I chew through Custodes. For whatever reason, their damage output just doesn't work into me very well at all.
I had a weird, interesting moment that happened that's never happened to me at a GT before.
Yeah, what's that?
My 5th game, I had to move my dice tray because I was having to roll like this because the way the light was hitting my dice, I couldn't see them. It glared off of my dice in such a way that I'm like, I hit? What? Yeah, I hit. And like, I'm looking over there and I'm like, asking my opponent, I'm like, did I get them all?
What does that say?
It was bad. And so eventually I moved it to like the middle, but I was still standing at like a weird angle. Like afterwards, like, all right, give me 7.
Well, it's a lot. You need to get one of those banker's visors, So
Come up to the table with the giant duck bill and be ready to play 40K.
Yeah. All right, DJ. It's time to do the therapy. It's time to start the healing process. We got to talk about it.
Do we have to?
Got to do it.
All right. Well, one thing before we jump into that, did play against Votan. I will say, I know what I'm doing into Votan.
You are welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
That was a
Guy
win
was-
for DJ.
the
DJ
guy
did
was
get
a
enough
great-
practice into Votan.
No, I mean, I had fine. I had
Yeah.
a fine time, and now we're going to transition, and I'm actually going to break this down and talk about this point.
Mhm.
And we'll start with the guy who you played against as well, with Imperial Guard.
Yeah.
Votan, I'm fine with Votan, but Imperial
Oh, did you want to talk
Guard.
about the units I don't use? I haven't put on the channel yet.
No. We'll
Okay.
talk about that when we go over the Votan.
Sure.
We actually do that separately. But we'll,
Okay.
because I want to do that, I want to talk about Votan a little more in depth and what
Sure,
you're
sure.
doing and that stuff.
Yeah, we can do that.
But Imperial Guard. So I got a lot of practice with the Canoptic list in. And everything started off very well. Like I said, I ran into Votan. I knew exactly what to do, how to play the mission. Catans go up the middle, make a big shield, and that's what it's all about. Imperial Guard.
Imperial Guard.
I looked into them a very little beforehand. I knew about the Karsakin bomb and the
Mhm.
mortal wounds there. And this GT had already put the FAQ. They had said with their tournament pack.
Oh, I think we
That's-
forgot to mention that the FAQs that went into effect a day or two before didn't apply to this.
Correct. Like
Yeah.
most events, this was rule
Like
change.
the nerf to Codex Warfare, that stuff didn't apply to this because it came out 2 days before the event, and it was unfair to the people that built the armies around those.
Correct. And that's common. That's very, very
However,
common.
the TO Dom, he did have in place even before this that the mortal wound bomb from the Kashkins was limited to 6 to 1 unit, not 6 to multiple units. So
Right,
they
so
can
you
only
couldn't
do 6
spread
mortal
that
wounds.
out.
Yeah.
And as we then saw 3 days before the GT, that was then made official. So it was just a preemptive strike on a rule that we all knew was coming.
Mhm.
But with that being said, the Imperial Guard,
Mhm.
you played against the same guy that I played against. Let's start with there.
Sure.
Votan into Imperial Guard.
So the guy's name was Eric Glasgow. We had a great game. It was really fun, really close. But some of the challenges were they have, we know about the Kashkin Mortal Wound Bomb. He had 4 Lehman Russes and 6 Armored Sentinels, and then had 1 little squad of the Rough Riders. Did you run into them? I shot them off the table before they can do anything. Did they get to hit your army at all?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that. I
Yeah.
got some color for you. I
All
got some
right.
color for you.
Bring some
I'm going to hijack the channel for a hot second here, but go ahead.
I'm
Go
ready
ahead,
for you
sir.
to pop off. So, 4 Lehman Russ tanks, the 6 Sentinels, had 4 just regular infantry squad, 2 the Kasrkins, so they could bring those in for some damage. Then he had a 3-man mortar teams hiding in a building because they can shoot out a line of sight, and he had a banner with those. The magical banner of BS. It made that so they did not take any penalties to shooting out of line of sight.
Correct.
So they didn't take the neg to hit modifier, and then you can give them buffs to reroll hits and that sort of thing. And not really applicable to my army, but to someone's army, they ignored phase caps.
And what has a phase cap in my army lane?
The 2 most important things in your army.
And what are those 2 most important things in my army
Your
lane?
Satans.
Yes.
Listen, I'm not really sad to see them die. So, but even the mortars themselves might not do a huge amount of damage, but just the fact that you could shoot it with a tank, do the 3 wounds, and then pump mortars into it, pick up 2, 3, 4 more wounds. You're not going to be able to keep them around very long.
Take a second, because I'm gonna go through that and go through it colorfully. Oh, trust me, I'm chomping at the bits here, man. Talk about guard scoring.
I don't know. That's also BS. In addition to the banner of BS, the scoring. No, their secondaries are really, really strong. That's one. I really only have 2 major complaints about 9th edition right now. One is the rules float. Some people agree, some people disagree, whatever. But my other is just that some armies have secondaries that score way quicker and way more easily than others. I love my Votan, but their secondaries aren't great. They're great in some situations. Some armies have.
It's close. Games Workshop has definitely had to notice the fact that you don't need to build every army doesn't need to be more powerful and more destructive than the last. Some of these armies, there is some good guys and bad guys, and this is going to sound preachy for a second, but it's true. There are good guys and bad guys. Okay, Tyranids, bad guys. Imperium, good guys. I know there's the politics behind are they really good? Yeah, are they really good? Are they that? They're transpired as babyface and heel, and that's the best way I can describe it, because same is true in wrestling. The baby faces are the Space Marines, the Imperium. The heals are the aliens, the Necrons, the Tyranids. All these guys are the heals. Okay? Bad guy doesn't need to win in some of these scenarios. Necrons don't need to win in some of these scenarios. If we're playing a campaign, you can allow me to put extra points on the table, stack rules, stack this, stack that, so that at the end of the game, the Imperium, the Marines, are really having to fight out of a critical situation. Then when we transfer over to the competitive side of things, what is it that the Necrons bring to the table? Well, here is that secondary game that is exclusive to match play. And since it's exclusive to match play, this is where now we fix the army competitively. An army that it may not be able to put out the damage like the Necrons do can survive and be resilient and actually play into this resurrection game to survive, hold, and push onto points. There's a secondary that the Imperial Knights have that they can score points on as long as they do not move backwards. That's something the Necrons.
Oh, they can score once they're tabled. There's one where they have, Imperial Knights have something. As long as they have honor, they get a certain number of secondary points, even if they're tabled. I've run into that. I've tabled Imperial Knights turn 4, and they're like, yeah, well, turn 5, I still have honor, so I'm still getting points. Okay, whatever you say, boss.
And that's one thing that they can do. Like Votan and Tau, who are supposed to be these firepower destructive pieces, can play a secondary game off the end of the game. So if they do not eliminate their opponent, their other army, then they can't score their secondaries and they end up losing because they don't score enough. So seeing some of this and how we can balance these out throughout armies is really, really cool. And I hope GW sees it. And I hope that's going to be the next edition that we go through with codexes. But again, as being a wrestling fan, you can't always assume that they're hearing what the fans want. And that's more of an insult on some of the wrestling product over the past couple of years outside of my favorite wrestler, Triple H's current jurisdiction. I hope that he's back in control. There's my tangent with that. Imperial Guard.
Anyways,
Guard.
It was a super close game. A bunch of crazy stuff happened during this game. Twice my Magna Rail that is 6 plus 2d3 damage hit and wounded a Lehman Russ, but his armor is a 2-up and the AP is a 4, so he got 6-up saves. Well, twice in the same game, he made those 6-up saves. Once he made an 11-inch charge with Leontis, the guy on a horse. Just crazy stuff happening. Well, it came, and then my favorite moment from the whole GT happened here. He was pounding my bikes with those 3 mortar squads because, again, they're strength 5 now. Previous editions, they were strength 4, so not that great. But at strength 5, they can actually get some work done, especially when they don't take the penalties because of the banner. So 3 of them hiding behind a building. I couldn't get at them. I moved up a bike squad, and they got shot down to just the last 2 Pioneer jet bikes. But the last 2 Pioneer jet bikes had the heavy weapons on them. So those 2 bikes by themselves can put out 28 shots. So I put on the e-brake and I Tokyo drifted around that last piece of terrain. Both those guys did the Akira motorcycle slide right in there. I split fire from these 2 bikes, not between 2 units, but between 3 different units. I shot into all 3 mortar squads with each bike has 2 shotgun shots, 3 autocannon shots, and 9 rotary cannon shots. So I'm just blasted away, firing all over the place. And of those 3 different squads, each one had 3 mortar bases. I picked up 8 of the 9 of them. It was great. It was awesome.
That's some output.
Especially with my opponent, who I was like, I'm going to do something crazy. He's like, do it. And then I did it. And he was like, yes. It's always good. If you want to be a good opponent, enjoy when your opponent has a big moment like that, because it's just a lot of fun. We're telling stories together is what we're doing when we're playing here. Very few of us win all of the games. So it's great when something awesome happens to my opponent. He had a great time with that happening to me too. And in the end, it came down to the very last move where he charged some of his infantry into the Hecaton to steal an objective from me. And he won by 2 points. It was a great game, very gracious winner. So I appreciate that.
Even more so, not even the sense of not winning every single game. You're going to lose units. Units are going to die. People are going to shoot some of your stuff. And sometimes sometimes in some matchups, you're going to lose your big centerpiece that you think can control the center and push the entire game. And you have to know what you're going to do without it. And that's where I'll say is that actually my game with Eric was also the best game that I had in the weekend.
Because DJ played them the game after I did.
Yes, I did. So here was how my tournament started out. I'm doing really well. I'm 2-0. I'm moving into the next round, and bam, I got guard. And I go into guard and I start talking to this guy about things. And I knew about the Karzakin Bob and all that stuff. And I'm looking at his list. And this list John played had a lot of chimeras in it, a lot of las cannons in each one of his guard teams.
Oh, this is a different guard.
Yes, this is a different guard list. This is John's
DJ had the
list.
privilege of playing guard twice.
Yes. So the first running game, the end of day 1, game 3, when I'm on a hot streak with this Canoptic list, is when I run into guard. And the banner ignores the face cap, which meant that put my Catans behind walls. So at least the only thing that he was hitting me with was mortars. And at least I could possibly defend through the fact that I have a higher toughness than they do, and still
strength 5 into T6, T7, T7?
T7. So going into this matchup, I had not played a single game against guard, and that's bad. That's bad. I definitely should have played into guard, because here is what happened. And
there are a few guard players in our area, but not that many, and they're not that active. So we just in general, I maybe got 1 or 2 in, but games.
Well, it's a hard army to build quickly when the codex guard had.
They have lots of models, lots of
Militarum.
infantry, lots of tanks.
Correct. Astra Militarum got their book very, very late. And now that we're this close to 10th edition, there's probably some people are like, well, do I really want to build this army now when we go to an index here soon? So there might be kind of a stall and delay that if you didn't already have an Imperial Guard army, you may not pick one up. So we don't, having access to someone who plays guard is difficult. I found 2 of them in a row. Mm-hmm. So the 2 that I found in a row
first. Practice.
Yeah. So the first game was the game that I got to learn how to play against guard. And being that way, I had to put up a very, very defensive stance. And the sad point was when my opponent tells me, man, that was a really bad shooting phase for me. And in my turn, I scored a 3 on Purge the Vermin, a 4 on Treasure of Aeons, because I swarmed across the board. I just popped my 2nd Ancient Machinery, and I was looking at an 8 on that. So I had 4 points there. So I'm looking at 4, 3, and 3. Or 4, 4, 3, 4, 4, and 3. Excuse me. And then he turns around and goes, well, I'm going to get 5 for this one. I'm going to get 4 on this one. I got 3 on this one. Then I'm also going to get 3 for the mission secondary. And I'm just like, really?
Yep.
Now, I can't say too much because I did get my time with Necrons and their crazy secondaries. I did get to play those.
You did.
And I won a couple of majors and GTs and little things here and there with Silent King crap. Yeah. So I can't complain too much that the shoe's on the other foot at this point. But man, it just feels like guard have everything. In that matchup, I was watching as chimeras were going across the middle, and then he was selecting one chimera to issue an order to make them objective secured. Then that objective secured order would bounce to another tank that was within 6 inches, and then bounce to another one. So now there was multiple vehicles that had objective secured and could push out and take away objectives from me by just tagging them, because they count as 5 models when they do so.
Yeah.
So that was brutal. The banner is treated as a character. So you can't pick it out. Not that you would even be able to see it in most circumstances, because it's hiding behind a wall. The banner has a 6-inch aura that any units within its range, ignore the penalties to hit, can get additional AP. The commander, I think, gives them reroll 1s to hit and wound. Sorry. They count as like I said, the lookout, sir. So you're not getting to them. They're hiding behind a wall. This is the aura that we're getting. And then they put 3 mortar teams by them. And those mortar teams are strength 5, and anything they pummel, they're picking up a unit a turn. Yeah. I mean, there's really very few units, and they're very expensive, that they're not picking up immediately on a turn, but they're basically picking up a unit a turn. D6 shots apiece. I think my warriors never got shot by the mortars, I'll tell you the truth. And I do think if they would have gotten shot at, it would not have done anything to them, only because I get to reanimate between each 3 mortars shooting. I think that my warriors could have made it through that a little bit longer. It would have probably been hit, survive the first 3, have to use the resurrection orb to bring back warriors, hit, survive 3 again, don't have the resurrection orb, next turn hit, gone.
Yeah.
So I probably could have pushed them till turn 3 through it. I think both my opponents may have known those numbers as well because they didn't get shot at for that reason.
Yeah.
Scarabs also did really well, being able to do, because single damage weapons. So Scarabs did really well. But what didn't do too well was the Catans. Even with the higher toughness, they still...
they have no AP, but you just have 4-up invuln. So that even when they're getting wounds through, you still only got a 4-up save, which is going to be really swingy.
The unique thing...
That's the way my bikes work, is that bikes can't get cover, and they only have 4-up armor.
The unique thing that John did was he actually used more infantry and put them in chimeras. And he was kind of just run a chimera up because the guard can get out after the chimera moves. So once...
And boots on the ground, which is like a engage on all fronts secondary. So
Correct. And steal objectives as well, too. You know, he moves chimeras up, he turns them sideways, throws guys out behind him. You blow up the chimera, and then he can just rush that banner out that wall into the middle. And now right here at center field, he may have a bunch of guardsmen that suddenly can just spray, not have damage modifiers, be boosted. And in a situation with my Catan, I could end up running into 3 or 4 las cannons that do not ignore phase. So that put me in a position where I put them behind the building and was able to try and push him back. I ended up going first, which allowed me to set up a kind of a defensive move out towards the middle. This was, I can't remember which mission this was, but this was the one that was the angle across the middle. It was from corner to center.
Data Scry? No.
Not Data Scry.
Yeah, I don't remember.
That was used, yeah, but either way, it was a 4 or 5 objective mission, 1 in the center, 2 in each corner.
Oh, it was the bombs? Tear down their icons?
Thank you. Yeah. Tear down the icons. It was bombs, yes. And I was able to put the Catans behind a wall. He pummeled the Void Dragon early, which forced me to have to play the Void Dragon's hand, which then, because I played out the Void Dragon, I also pushed the Nightbringer going, okay, well, you have a set of mortars, you can kill 1 of the 2 next turn, so you'll just kill the Void Dragon. Instead, he went after the Nightbringer. He didn't kill the Nightbringer and left him wounded. Nightbringer was then able to push into some of the guardsmen, finishing off the tank, and then getting shot in the next round with very, very little protection left. At best, he killed some guardsmen and pushed forward and made a threat. The Void Dragon was the one who actually was able to push back the hardest. With him being able to heal off the vehicles, he picked up a Chimera and was able to heal off that to get him into another phase level. And when he got out with his Marines and shot at and was able to shoot at the Nightbringer, bring the Nightbringer down, it didn't leave a lot left to hit the Void Dragon. So the Void Dragon was able to make it through that phase bracketing. And obviously, guard are not going to charge a Void Dragon. And right. Void Dragon was actually able to make it all the way back and into the corner. Unfortunately, this game should have probably been on time because we ended up getting called on turn 4. Wish I would have played with the clock. Might be changing my stance on how I feel about that now. It may start bringing my own clock to it because that happened. And I think I could have possibly... There's a chance I could have pulled that out because of how the score was. In both of my guards games combined, I only lost both games by a combined total of 6 points.
Yeah, and I lost mine by 2 points. So super close games.
Right. So there's something to be said that I could have pushed it back in that game. There's something to say I could have pushed back my game 3 and possibly made it happen because of some of the stuff I had surviving at the end, because I was able to turn around and pick up all of his infantry. And with his chimeras and something that that I'm very good with, I'm able to put scarabs in his way and bog up his vehicles. So even though his tanks were on the table and I couldn't touch the Lehman Russes, I couldn't touch, could only beat up a couple chimeras, I was able to put scarabs and stuff that he wasn't clearing in front of him. And now he can't move through the middle. He can't take the territory and can't do anything. That was that game. Now, game 2 was into Eric. That was a game that did not go to time. That was a game that I knew exactly what guard could do. The difference between John and Eric's list, John was off meta with a meta army. Eric was exactly on the meta. Don't blame anything there. I played meta. We've all...
That's a big tournament. Play to win. Build the list to win.
Exactly. But that was more on meta. He had the Karzakins, which John did not. Okay. John did not run that bomb and did not have those teleporters. Eric did. Now, in the matchup with Eric, he was a Necrom fan himself. So there was some very, very big excitement over one specific moment. So I had just got done with John's game the day before. I had my practice. I knew what guard could do now. He knew what Necrons could do. This was my chance. If I can beat guard, I'm going to do it now, or it's not going to happen because this person knows what my units can do. I now know tentatively what guard can do. So we don't have to play around with all the would you, could you, should you things of it. Opening Gambit, he smacks the Void Dragon, drops him down to 3 wounds off the mortars. Void Dragon starts off, we're in Data Scribe. Void Dragon starts off in the terrain. Then Void Dragon jumps out to middle. Now he had 2 3-man squads of the armored sentinels with plasma cannons on them. And he moved them out to start going towards the other objectives and start blocking some of his tanks. He moves out the sentinels. My Void Dragon, who's now been dropped down to 3 wounds, goes up to 4 on living metal, hurdles over the wall, and is sitting on an 8-inch charge to those sentinels. At this point, I do some psychic powers. I do my Catan powers. I put up Sky of Falling Stars twice. And Eric, who is a very smiley, happy guy, it wasn't that he got angry. I shocked him because I went, all right, I'm going to do Sky of Falling Stars, and I'm going to target the command squad. And he's like, but it's care. And he stops and he looks, and we looked at it, and we stopped, and he thought about it for a second. I had the card over there. He's like, he took the card and read it but he was shaking his head like, yes, yes. He looks at it. He's like, yeah, okay. Puts it back down, sits there, and he watches as I pop. Sky hits 3 mortal wounds. And then he starts going, okay, I'll take this guy. I'll take this. No, I'm going to take wounds on the commander. Then I go, okay, I switched over. Nightbringer. Number 2, Sky of Falling Stars. And he sits back and he scratches his chin. And he's like, all right. And I hit, and I did 1 though. So that was a weaker one. But now the Void Dragon is sitting out here looking at those armored sentinels. So I got my race on my charge because I didn't want him to overwatch me and pick up some easy wounds.
Yeah, it's a different phase, so moves past the phase cap because if it gets shots off in Overwatch, that's in the charge phase, a different phase.
Pick up 2 dice, Void Dragon charging into sentinels, toss them in the box, boom, hit a 9. Void Dragon charges in. Void Dragon comes in. Up first, I whipped him with the tail because I got 1 down to 1 wound. So first
you had 1 at 1 wound. Oh, perfect.
So I threw the tail
because they are 6 or 7 wounds apiece, aren't they? The armored ones, I think,
they're a little more. They're a little more
because they're 3-up armor, because the armored ones are surprisingly tough for a cheap little model.
Yeah, look cool too. Tail picks up that last model. Then the spear comes in, bam, uppercuts the other 2 into oblivion. Pick up 3 dice because now the Void Dragon has destroyed 3 vehicles this turn. Pick up 3 dice.
What does that mean, DJ?
3, 4, and 5. Void Dragon goes from 4 wounds to 7 wounds and is now facing the backfield of the Lehman Russ tanks. And he was ecstatic. He's like, yes, the Void Dragon never does that for me. And I was happy. I'm like, that never happens. The Void Dragon never gets to heal. It was great. And then the Void Dragon died. He took him out of there real quick. He's like, he's not going to hang around.
You can't let that happen again. No. That was cool one time. He's not going to let that happen again.
No. Karzakin Bomb moved over to the other side of the field to finish off my Necron Warriors. It was too much damage. It killed them down. I think he killed them 2 over the squad size. So it was close with the invuln. Almost kept those guys alive.
Yeah, they do mortals, but they also just put out a lot of regular shots, too.
They do. And they were able to...
They were able to AP2 type stuff that it can really shred through infantry.
Yes, so they were able to actually pick them up and left me with my Overlord and my Chronomancer over there. And the Overlord got into a position where he moved his guys up onto the objective. I charged the Overlord in after I shot with the Aeon Stave off the Chronomancer, charged the Overlord in, and left them with 3 guys remaining. He fails morale, 2 guys left, both of them stand. They don't take combat attrition to fall away, and the guys end up standing there. I fail to hold the objective for what was it? Not Ancient Machineries, Treasure of Aeons. So that cost me a point there on Treasure of Aeons. Also on the fact that he was then able to still hold the objective in his turn to hold more for primary because he had 2 guys to my 1 on the objective. So that was tough. Leman Russ battle tank moved over and gave itself objective secured to take the other objective from me, so that it was able to stop me from having objectives during my turn. And then he contested it moving forward with Chronomancer to just the one Leman Russ, even though we were behind the wall. So he was able to get those objectives away from me because I didn't have the warriors to remain, and the Overlord, which, to be expected, flubbed to kill all of the guardsmen in one go. It was a Hail Mary. I didn't really have the dice for it, but that's where I needed to pick it up. Where the game was still in my hands was going more towards the south as I played Data Scribe moving forward. The Nightbringer was able to get in with the spiders and a squad of scarabs over into the other two objectives, which were the primary ancient machinery, treasure of aeons that I wanted. Holding those two would have given me the 3 points because they were the more difficult ones for me to get to, the ones closer to my opponent. Came down to the very last squad shooting at the Nightbringer, and the Nightbringer had one or two wounds remaining. And we got to the inbones. And out of the 4 saves, what I remember from it was I had 4 saves to make, and I needed to not fail X amount. I think I needed to not fail 2 to get into it, and I did the 1 at a time because of the command point reroll. And I hit the first 2 and then missed the last 2, and that was the reason it ended up costing him. He died. Had the Nightbringer survived because of what was left over here in Stray, the Nightbringer himself could have cleared this entire corner. I would have lost the corner I was holding initially. I would have picked up these points for Purge the Vermin. I would have picked up these points for Treasure of Aeons. The last remaining scarabs were able to hide behind a wall on the other side and start ancient machineries. I was looking at 4 more points over there, plus the 2 points for Treasure of Aeons, plus an extra point for Purge the Vermin, and also the not giving him a 12 on primary for not controlling those objectives. I lost that game by 6 points. That's where it was. And that's where the moment was that I lost it. He played a fine game. He played a very clean game. He played the game exactly as he needed to play it. And it came down to, at the end, in order for me to win this game, those dice needed to tell me it was keeping the Nightbringer alive. Without him, that's where I lost it. It was backpedaled throughout it. I did everything I humanly could in it. I personally was very proud of the game I put out into a definite deficit against Imperial Guard. They score way faster. They take away my biggest threat with the Catans. Not much I can do.
Yeah. Well, Guard took 2nd place at the event. Not the guys that we played, but another Guard player did really well as well.
Correct.
And took 2nd for an 80-player event. It's a big deal.
Yep. One cool thing that actually did happen in the game against John, there was a moment when me and him, during our game, that actually gave me a couple points. It was pretty cool. So he used an order to give the Chimera objective secured, ran it up the field, or something. And I asked him, I think it was the order. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Don't quote me on it. But whatever it was that gave him objective secured did expire at the beginning of the next turn for my turn. So during my turn, the Chimera no longer was objective secured. I had a single scarab on the objective. And I was like, okay, so is this objective score more? He goes, no. He's like, but I contest it because I have that model there to yours, so you don't control that. I go, okay. I'm like, so what I'm going to do is first I'm going to use, at the beginning of the command phase, first I'm going to use the Technomancer to resurrect one of the dead spiders. He was like, oh, wow, you can res a spider with him. I'm like, yes, they're core monsters. They're core. They're fine. So I take him and I resurrect the spider and I put him 2 inches in front of the one that's currently on the field. Now he is within 6 inches of the scarabs that are in the middle. Then I go still getting command phase. This spider is going to resurrect a scarab in that squad that is 6 inches away, putting a 2nd scarab into the middle. He goes, okay. I'm like, now I control the objective 2-1 with the scarabs, and was able to score points on that. And that was one that he was like, wow. He's like, okay, cool. He's like, I didn't realize the spiders could res. Wasn't much you could do to stop it at that point, but yeah, it's one thing that people are surprised. They're like, wow, you can res a spider with a Technomancer. Yes, I can put a 6-wound guy back out there. Please don't nerf that into Oblivion GW. It's one thing I got. It's one thing I got. It's not an ATV. Let me have it, man. I don't have a chief apothecary throwing dudes around back on the field. Just get back up. Get back up. Here. Heal you. Res you.
Bringing back attack bikes. Apparently a medic can do that. Put an attack bike back.
Yeah. He just kicks it. Yeah, the bike. I can understand that he's able to like give like some sort of injection to reboost them and bring back the not superly fatally wounded. So I guess that the dude that just got a las cannon shell through his chest is not the guy he's bringing back. Although it might be the model we put back. That's not who he's resurrecting.
Right.
What's he doing to the bike?
He's got like his medic kit and then also spare tires on his backpack, so he can like
I guess
he can just put the wheel that fell off back on there.
Hiking gas, running gas.
Oh, he's fill her up.
Yeah.
He's like AAA. You're like, oh man, I hear you got locked out of your attack bike. I'm here to get you back in
this
there.
Is why this is why there is no AAA in the 41st millennium. Apothecaries put him out of business.
That's right.
Apothecaries. He's got the Midas touch and not the Golden Glove way.
Right.
So, well, that's a lot to unpack from there. Guard are very, very tough right now. There's not much else to say. They score fast.
Mm-hmm.
Lane, your feelings, your thought?
Oh yeah, and they're close games, so I don't think it's wildly overpowered. It's just you have to know exactly what you're doing when you play into them. You can't have any surprises. You have to practice into them if you're going to run into them. So if they're in your meta, get the practice games in.
See, I gotta say, I do think that this does fall into a point that they are a little overpowered. I would have to say that I think they are. I think that it comes down to more of the secondaries. Their secondary game is too easy for them to score, that even if they're not doing too hot, they're still scoring too well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what needs to be reduced a little bit more. I think that it's fine that the guard are able to destroy things and bring things down. I'm not salty about the fact that my Catan's being removed like that. I just feel that right now the way they score is too quick, too fast, and too strong. Both of my games came down to more into the primaries and how those got held, and where I lost like one hit on these points there, but I was scoring 12s on primary myself. Like I think 2 turns I was able to get a 12 on primary,
Mm-hmm.
and that should be able to outweigh my deficit of my secondaries. I at least feel, in my opinion, with how a lot of that went. And my secondaries weren't in a very big deficit. You know, I was still putting up 8 and 16 on or 8 and 12, excuse me, quickly on ancient machineries. I was still able to execute that. So, and then treasure is not a very difficult one. So I was still able to keep consecutive points going, but you can't keep up to 5-point turn hits, especially going against an army that really, really could potentially table you. That's tough.
And the thing is, they don't need to hurt you to score. They score without hurting you, but then they also hurt you a whole lot, so you can't really shut them down. Anyway.
I think it's the combination of both.
Like Votan hit really hard, but they need to kill you to win. Several guards' secondaries are just about being, boots on the ground, being in table quarters. Like I said, it's engaged on all fronts, but better. And then also inflexible command, which is just make sure you're near officers within 24 inches for the guard squads because they have the comms devices. So, yeah, the only way you can really shut that off is to kill the characters. And they have so much stuff that it's hard to get in there and do that. Even with close combat units that move really fast, they still just have so much bubble wrap and so many units that it's hard to get in and get all the characters you need. So, but, yeah, no, they're good close games. Had a great time against them. Yeah, more in practice, we might have better games to them.
Well, guys, not to cut this video short.
It's not short. I'm sleepy. I need to go to bed.
I know we're going to cut this short now, but we could probably talk on forever about this. And this is one of the things, is that there is a lot to unpack from this. Unfortunately, it's going to be, I don't know if we're going to be able to get to another GT before 10th hits. Motor City Mayhem is coming up. Talk with the wife. I actually could have tentatively could go to Motor City Mayhem. But with my wife changing jobs a bit, I want to make sure she has time to adjust to it. So I feel like in some ways it might be better to just try and hit that next year and hit Motor City next year. And with that, a lot of places are going to start to dial down. It is a big investment to do a GT, renting an event hall, awards and everything, et cetera, because a lot of people are going to start dialing back and are ready to wait, are waiting and ready for 10th edition, you know? And there's a part of me that is too. There's a part of me that is very excited to see what index Necrons are going to look like, you know? And there's a part of me that doesn't want to invest a lot of time into things like, right now I'm looking at Grey Knights. I'm going to try and get them ready in case I can get to a GT. I'm looking forward to that. But aside from that, I kind of want to sit back and hold and wait and see what's everything going to look when index hits and what models are we going to see from Marines. Because, man, those Terminators look cool.
Yeah, we can assume there's more. I assume there's some more new units for Marines coming too, because they had a couple things where Marine units were redacted, so we might see some new. And I mean, we just got the Desolation Marines and the Brutalis Dreadnought. I think we're getting some more stuff. So
I'm hoping something close combat. I'm hoping the Primaris unit that's more close combat than the Assault Intercessors. Like,
there's so many units in the Marine Codex. It's like, I don't know where they're going to fit in, where there's a hole.
The question is,
there's hundreds of Marine units.
The question is, in alphabetical order, where will this new unit fall?
It's going to be in the eyes.
It's going to be in the eyes. It's going to be in the eyes. Guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed the recap. Leave us some comments down below and let us know some things that you guys did enjoy hearing so we can try and focus on those points in the future. This is the first recap we're doing from this. I know it did kind of run a little long, but really enjoyed making it, and I hope you guys enjoyed this listen. And you know, Guard, I don't like Guard right now. I don't like Guard. Yeah, that's realistically the thing from the tournament. I wasn't ready for Guard. I thought I was ready for everything. I was not ready for Guard. I didn't know about the banner. That's my bad. Nobody who played against Guard told me about this banner that existed.
I did like 5 minutes before you played.
Right. But there's also a couple of other people out there, in my friends in the area, and you know who you are. You didn't tell me about the banner when I'm getting ready to play Catans. And that means I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you guys, and you know who you are. You just made the list. Chris Jericho reference.
Leave some comments telling DJ that he needs to watch out for the banner because he needs to get that message. So
you've just made the list as well. Guys, have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you again soon.